Hey, this is Paul, and today we're going to review our first Orona seedling. Now, we grew out 8 seeds in 2019, and this is seedling number 5. It's weighing in at just under 8 tenths of a pound. Now, I've had a few of these fruits so far, and they're really delicious, red-fleshed, and dark red. So let's get started here. Look at that. Really full of antioxidants, and you can see it's a really delicious-looking red-fleshed variety. Now, I've had it bricks in the 16s. Hopefully we can get it a little sweeter. And these are the last fruit of the season. Oops, I should zero it first. And these are the last fruit of the season, and I left them on a little bit longer. So you can see that there's very little green left on the fruit itself, on the bracts. So let's go ahead and try one of these out. It's very typical red flesh so far. I wouldn't spend $100 a cutting on this, I'll tell you that. But let's see if it's improved a bit as I left it on the vine for a longer time. There you go, 16 5/10. So it did get a little sweeter. Let's see how it tastes. Taste-wise is much improved now that I've let it get a solid red. This tastes absolutely delicious. Reminds me a bit of Caslau, but a bit more tangy. So I would say, I do feel that this is an improvement on Orona for sure. And it's really, really red-fleshed, very dark red. Must be full of antioxidants. Let's see if this one's a little sweeter or not. 16 2/10. So this year, its first season of fruit, it didn't get up to 18, but it's a very respectable score. Really juicy, really flavorful. I feel that this is improved over Orona, so that is a good thing. I would like to see if I could get it a little sweeter next season. Juicy. Really typical red flavor, but without the earthiness. It's very clean. This is definitely a keeper. Orona Seedling number 5. I do feel it's good enough to share, so I'll share some of these, maybe a few cuttings with people. See if they're interested. But all in all, a really delicious red fleshed fruit. I really like it a lot. I'm not getting any earthiness, really just a smooth, pleasant red flesh variety. Really nice texture, really crisp, really clean. Wow. I'll tell you what, leaving the fruit on for another 6 or 7 days, past the first time I picked it when it was more green on the bracts, is night and day difference. Wow. Really juicy. 2 thumbs up. Even though it's a mid-16 bricks. Wow. I'm really happy with this one so far. It's almost a darker red too, if you can see. It's definitely more of a darker red than its parent plant, Orona. Now, we have several other seedlings. We'll see how they taste. We have one with fruit on it this season, number 7. And my friend had fruit on number 8 already. So there you go. That is the first assessment of our Orona seedling number 5. Really beautiful dark exterior, like a burgundy red, and really delicious, full of antioxidants, as you can see. Delicious texture, definitely much better than the fruit I had a week ago. Really dark colored too, as you can see. But be careful, it will stain. So you want to clean up anything before it gets on the granite for too long, because this red-fleshed will definitely stain. Hey, this is Paul, and thanks for checking out Frankie's Red. It's weighing in at almost 3/4 of a pound, and I'm really excited to try this Solanacearis megalanthus variety. Now, this flowered back in September 17th. You can see the flower here. It's stunning. So it's been 3.5 months, almost, about 14 weeks for it to ripen. Now the story goes that this came from a nursery in Hawaii, Frankie's nursery, way back into 2006. You can see that I got Leo Manuel's plant from 2006, March 11th, and it's quite old. So it's almost 18 years old. Now you can also see it looks pretty much like a pine tree. It's really interesting, the plant itself, and it is rather sensitive, one of the more sensitive varieties that I grow in the collection. So let's go ahead and give this a cut and give this a taste. I'm really excited. Wow, beautiful, look at that. Absolutely stunning. Nice thin skin here, so it's not very good for commercial potential, but it is a nice thin skin in the sense that it's really, really ripe. Wow, look at that. It's beautiful. Kind of reminds me of a Desert King, huh? Okay, so let's go ahead. A lot of seeds, higher seed to flesh ratio than what I expected, but that's okay. And the seeds are not as large as, say, a Pelora. So I did notice that the seeds are a little bit smaller. So that's a good thing. And let's see how this winter fruit tastes and how sweet it is. At least get a sample. So almost 21, 20 9/10. Very, very respectable. It's very sweet. Wow, really good. It's like candy. Now the seeds are rather crunchy. But not earthy at all. And this is a delicious, sweet dragon fruit. Wow. It's not mushy at all. It's rather firm. Especially for a winter fruit. Absolutely delicious for a wintertime fruit. A little bit of tart, but it's more on the sweetness leaning aspect. Definitely better than a yellow Pelora in my opinion. I prefer this hands down over a yellow Pelora. Tastes like a yellow Pelora with a slight berry vibe, maybe a slight raspberry, like smushed berries. Very, very good. 9 out of 10. I can't wait to finish this. It's a really pretty looking fruit too. Now I could have even waited longer. You can see it just turned color. A lot of people wait until it's solid orange. But as you can see, it's plenty sweet. So 2 thumbs up. Hey, this is Paul, and thanks for checking out our preview on Albino Oamp Ponus. You can see here, it's a stunning fruit weighing in at 61/100ths of a pound. And visually, it's absolutely gorgeous. And we'll also do a second season review on Gray Panama, which is a rare Oamp Ponus. It's weighing in at just under a pound. And then a standard, this one is a No ID Del Riego, one of my favorite Guatemalan varieties. So let's go ahead and get started here with what everybody's curious about is this version of Oamp Ponus. Now it's actually a white fleshed inside, as you can see. So I'm really excited to try it. And it definitely looks really ripe. You can see it's got a thin skin. It's actually got a nice flesh to seed ratio. And then I even see some like little yellow spots in it. Look at that. That is a very unique trait. And then you can see how it compares to a traditional looking Oamp Ponus. You can see the fiery red skin. It's absolutely gorgeous. This one turns yellow before it turns red. And then inside, you can see it's a much different red flesh. But you can see both of them are quite ripe, and they're not overripe because I don't see any degradation of the flesh here. It all looks pretty consistent, maybe a little there. Versus this one, stunning. Now, these traditionally are not my favorite to sample, so let me ease into this with something familiar. this gray Panama. Sweetness, earthiness, and that familiar, I define it as a sweet beet Oamp Ponus vibe, but this one's not too bad. And then the seeds, I detect an earthiness in them. Slightly mushy texture. This one may be a little overripe, but not bad. Let's see its sugar content. Definitely not in my top varieties to grow or eat. I mean, it's edible, it's enjoyable. It's probably better than the majority of fruit that you can buy in the store. A lot of those white flesh especially are picked too soon. But definitely not what I want to eat as a first choice to grow. But not bad. It's just okay. I'd give it like a C or a 6 out of 10. Something like that. That's a D actually. There you go, 15 and 7/10. They'll get higher. Some of these will bricks into the 20s. I've had a Gruyere bricks close to 20. But it generally tastes about the same there. All right, let's see how this one compares. Okay, it's a bit more dense than Gray Panama. A little mushy. Not as flavorful, but this is the first season fruit on kind of a small plant. It's definitely going to probably be sweeter next season with more plant mass, but not bad at all. Let's see how the sugar content of this sample here. 14. 13 and 9/10. I'm sure it'd get a little sweeter for sure, but definitely not a typical Oamp Ponus flavor. Sweetness, not much earthiness. Probably better than, I would definitely say this is better than any store-bought Undatus I've eaten. This one has more acidity, but this one's rather mild. The seeds are not earthy either. Pretty good. I find also the little yellow specks kind of interesting. I'm eating them right there. I'm definitely going to keep it around. I really like how it looks. There's a few versions of these. There's like a Albino La Katrina, I believe. It's got longer spines. I think I have the shorter spine one. And they say that this one maybe tastes not as good from what I've read online. But hey, I'll keep it around. They're definitely some of the better Oamp Ponus that I've had so far. All right, now I need to kind of compare it to something that I consider a premium top tier variety is any Guatemalan. And man, just off the top of my head, American Beauty, G1, G2, G3, Shayna, Condor, so many more. But these just tend to taste better. I like the texture more. I like the sweetness and acidity that's balanced. The seeds are more enjoyable, although these ones are rather mild. So there you go. Red flesh, white fleshed Oamp Ponus, which is pretty rare, and Guatemalan or Guatemalensis variety. So 3 beautiful fruit. Aesthetically, these ones are probably some of the most beautiful dragon fruit that you can see. But again, these tend to not taste as good as many other varieties. But stunning, stunning plants. Hey, this is Paul, and thanks for checking out TP66, which stands for Tony Pachenko number 66. It's weighing in at 1 3/4 pounds. Look at that. Really nice sized fruit. Now, hopefully you've seen our video where we interviewed Gary Matsuoka, who created Gary's Best Top Pot. And at his nursery in Laguna Hills is actually where I bought this plant a few years ago, and now we have a nice sized fruit. I had a small fruit last season to try it out, and it reminded me a bit of physical graffiti. So we'll have to see how it tastes today. So I believe Tony Pachenko used to work with Romero Lobo at the UCNR research plot, but I'm not sure. And look at that. It's a bit more magenta than I remember. It's definitely not pink flesh. I would call this magenta. It's a lighter magenta. And look at that. Really nice looking fruit. It looks delicious. I'm excited to try it. Well, let's check the sugar content. Whoops, I need to zero it out. It's important to use distilled water and to zero out your Brix refractometer. That way you get an accurate reading. And go right for the middle here. Looks really delicious, really juicy. Really juicy, wow. Get those air bubbles out of the way. And 17 8/10. Now I would have left it on a little longer. Looks like it could have been picked a little soon, but we were getting really cold nights and the fruit actually started to split at the cone. So I went ahead and picked it. Really good, enjoyable seeds. It reminds me of one of Paul Thompson's hybrids. Wow, I'm really liking it. Actually tastes more like a Guatemalan to me. Wow. Bit more nice sweetness and then acidity. Great texture, kind of a grape pop flavor. If you know what those taste like, let's compare it to a G2. So you can see a little bit of difference. It's a lighter flesh. Perhaps a Guatemalan crossed with a white. I'm not sure. Let's see how these two compare. Definitely prefer the TP66 over the G2 right now, at least these two fruit. Really delicious. This is a keeper. Grows really fast as well, and it seems pretty cold tolerant, aggressive grower. I don't think it's self-fertile. It probably needs to be cross-pollinated, but I cross-pollinate just about every fruit I can. Get these really nice sized fruit. So definitely a keeper. I would say it's similar to Paul Thompson's hybrids. I'd probably prefer this over Purple Haze, I would say. So it's up there with Dark Star for me. Not as tart as a PG. So perhaps last season's fruit was a bit less sweet and more tart. Absolutely delicious. I enjoy this one very much. So there you go, TP66, Tony Pachenko's plant. Probably hybridized it, I would assume, and I enjoyed it very much. Hey, this is Paul, and thanks for checking out Namibia Orange. You can see it's weighing in at 1 62/100 of a pound, so over 1.5 pounds. It's quite large, the largest Namibia Orange I've ever had in the 2 years I've been growing it. Now, if you look here, Namibia Orange is actually number 40 in Paul Thompson's unknown list of his book, Pitahaya. Now, you can also see they've talked about it in the tropical fruit forums, and what's actually orange is the flower bud. That's the only thing I can find that's orange about it. And it actually has a really interesting history. This plant, or this fruit, came originally from South Africa, and it was located in a French restaurant in Namibia, which is now another country. I believe it's Tanzania, but I'm not 100% sure. So either way, this was imported to California from South Africa, despite being native to Central America. So I'm really excited to enjoy this fruit. It's got an interesting history. It's been around with the California rare fruit growers for over 20 years. And let's cut it this way today. And it's a beautiful, as you can see, it's a beautiful Guatemalensis variety, a Guatemalan. This is going to be similar to G1, G2, G3, Del Riego, which is a no ID, Kim's Red, which is a no ID, Sour Patch Kids, which is a no ID Guatemalan, Kip's Red, and so many more. I could just list them on, but these tend to be my favorite. I think American Beauty is the standard, and this one is really delicious too. You can see it almost looks a little bit more white than American Beauty. It's got a little bit more white than magenta. So let's see how sweet it is first, before we taste this beautiful fruit. It's really large. Hoping it will get close to 2 pounds in time. Now this plant is a little cold sensitive, but most Guatemalans are. But the second season has done really, really well. It's topped the canopy. It's just really grown a lot. It's been an aggressive grower. And the sweetness is coming in at just 17. It will get up into the 19 and 20s, but I maybe picked this one a little early. You can see it's still green, but it's still phenomenal. It actually had a little split, see it there? So that's why I picked it. It will taste a little more sweet than what I'm tasting right now, but if you've had American Beauty, it tastes very, very similar to that. Hard to beat. These are my favorite fruit, and they always taste really, really similar. They have a nice sweetness, but also a really nice acidity, so they're very balanced. Wow. Despite the slightly lower brick score, which is, it doesn't mean everything. Anything above a 14 is pretty good in my opinion. I think this would be even better if it didn't split or I left it on the branch a little longer. But we are getting into fall. It's getting quite cold. We were in the 30s the other night, upper 30s. So these plants are going dormant and they are done making delicious fruit for the season. But an absolute treat. Now, hopefully you've seen our review of Del Riego. That is up there with American Beauty for me as well. But today I think I'll compare it with a G3. So you can see G3, very similar color. And that's very typical of Guatemalans. Some will be a little bit more pink and less white, but that could also be due to the time and the season when it's picked. Just a day or two can really change the sweetness and the flavor profiles of these fruit. But absolutely delicious. I mean, 9 out of 10 for me. I couldn't be happier eating all of these right now. Now back to back. Ever slight different texture. This tastes a little more dense than this one, but I feel like 99.99% of the population would not be able to taste a difference between these fruits. They are all so similar. And again, grow one of these. American Beauty, a G3, G2, G1, or this Namibia Orange. They are absolutely delicious. I couldn't be happier. So there you go, Namibia Orange. It's not much different than all the other Guatemalans. So grow a few of these species, in my opinion, and you'll be really happy. As long as especially they're self-fertile. I have not tested this for self-fertility, but most Guatemalans are self-fertile. However, I recommend cross-pollinating whenever possible. So there you go. There is Namibia Orange, a delicious magenta fleshed fruit. Gets quite large, over a pound, closer to 2 pounds actually, and just a consistently delicious fruit. It won't let you down. Hey, this is Paul, and thanks for checking out this rare hybrid created by Edgar Valdivia. You can see it's Tricia crossed with Hyloceras undatus, and it's weighing in at just over a pound. Now, this plant came out of the Leo Manuel collection, which I purchased after Leo Manuel passed away a little over a year ago. So I'm excited to try this. I already had a fruit, and it was really sweet. And let's go for it. So you can see it's a dark magenta flesh. And it was, again, really, really sweet. So it doesn't taste too much like an Oamp Ponus. So I'm excited to try it today and see how this large fruit tastes. And you can compare it to one of my favorites, Maria Fucsia, so you can see the different color in the flesh. So it's definitely not a red. I would consider it a dark magenta. So let's see how sweet it is. The last one bricked in the 18s. And it didn't have much tartness. It was really just on the heavy on the sweet side. So generally, the most sugar content of dragon fruit is going to be right in the middle. And let's go ahead and give it a test. I'm going to use a new one of these today. Woohoo. So it's nice and juicy. And it's 19 1/10, so very respectable. You can see it's definitely ripe. The skin is thin, but not too thin. It's a little squishy. And let's go for it. Wow. This one's even better than the last one. So it's really heavy on the sweet side. So if you like sweet fruit, this is your jam. It's dense like an Oamp Ponus, but not as dense. Wow. I get a very faint hint of Oamp Ponus, but not the sweet beet vibe. It's actually definitely an improvement over any Oamp Ponus I've ever had. I would take this over Trisha any day. Again, it's really heavy on the sweet side. There's very little acidity. So let me compare it to something that's more balanced. And this Maria Fusia is similar to a physical graffiti. Much more acidity here, more balance. So this hits you with sweetness and then some tartness. Where this one, it's really unique. And I mean, we grow over 300 varieties, and I don't have anything that tastes like this. Besides this, I should say. Really heavy, not tropical, but heavy sugar sweetness right away. And then just a really pleasant, mild finish. I barely taste any Oamp Ponus, and I don't taste any Undatus. Wow. Really, really delicious fruit. I enjoy it very much. So there you go. This is Edgar Valdivia's Trisha crossed with Hyloceras undatus. And I emailed Edgar and asked him about it, and he did not reply. So I don't think he has this plant anymore. This was in Leo Manuel's collection, and it's at least, I would say, 12 to 15 years old. So there you go, really unique variety, a hybrid of Trisha, which is El Grullo crossed with Undatus, and then it was crossed again with another Undatus. So this is a hybrid of a hybrid. So Undatus heavy, but look at that, it's still red or dark magenta, if you want to call it that. Really interesting color for flesh. Sort of in between what I would call magenta and red. So there you go. Very delicious fruit. Give us a like and subscribe. I highly recommend this one, although I'm probably the only one with it. But don't worry, I'm not going to charge $100. I don't think that is reasonable. I would say this thing's worth 10 to 20 bucks a cutting. That's what I'd recommend. Hey, this is Paul, and today I'm going to do an informal tasting on some of these very similar varieties. So I have Solanaceae cetaceus, Sugar Dragon, Neon from Leo Manuel, and Neon was his favorite, and then Richard Lee's Pink Panther. So as you can see, Sugar Dragon tends to be a little longer, elongated, but generally these fruit look really, really similar. And I've seen Sugar Dragon plump up like these others as well. So let's get started here. Let's go ahead and taste a few. This is Sugar Dragon, which Linda Nickerson renamed from 8S, as the story goes, from Elk Creek Dragon Fruit. Now I believe that this one is very similar to Voodoo Child, but I actually have no ripe Voodoo Child at the moment, so I can't compare them this year. Maybe later this season. But Sugar Dragon, always sweet. Old Bricks in the 20s. I'm not going to worry about Bricks today. And it tastes slightly, some say floral. I kind of like taste a little bit of soap. Now don't let that scare you, because it's the only negative thing I can think of. It's a very, very mild finish. And it's not always there. It's pretty prevalent on most Sugar Dragon. Now, I'm curious to see how Neon does, because last year it tasted better. And again, look at that. You cannot really tell a difference. Sugar Dragon will generally bloom sooner than Neon, but last year Neon tasted exquisite, and it did not have that kind of floral or soapiness that I describe. And this year, it's ever so faint, but it's sweeter. I prefer Neon, definitely. I think Neon tastes a little better. But I'd say they are 99% the same. Such similar fruit. Very hard to taste a difference. I would say this Neon just tastes a little sweeter, a little smoother, and has a little less of that floral, or I describe it as a soapy aftertaste. But it's not in a bad way. Please don't think that's a negative. Now this is Selenocereus setaceus, and it's reported to be really sweet. And you can see, look at how different the flesh color is. So I've had a few, but this is the first official one. Let's see how it tastes. Now these do generally bloom a little later than Sugar Dragon. Wow, very different flavor profile. Not as sweet, but zero of that aftertaste I describe. I'd have to say I still prefer Sugar Dragon. And let's try a Pink Panther. Now you can't pick them a little green, I would like to say. They'll still be really sweet in this stage as long as they kind of wiggle up and down, side to side like a loose tooth. They're pretty much ready. But I generally like to have them right when they've lost most of their color. But I like sweet fruit. And here's Pink Panther, which to me is almost identical to Setaceus, but you can see it's a little longer, at least this fruit is. And the story goes is that it was, I believe, Sugar Dragon crossed with Undatus to make this. I can't quite remember at this moment. But this Pink Panther is Edgar Valdivia named it, I do know that. Let's see how Pink Panther tastes. Definitely different. It's very delicious as well. Let's taste that again. It is really good. Not quite as sweet as Sugar Dragon. Try the Sugar Dragon again. I'd have to say Sugar Dragon is the winner in this batch. Or Neon. They're so similar, I cannot taste much of a difference. Yeah, informally, I'd have to rank these two about the same. They both taste really sweet and then have a nice little tart finish with a little bit of floral aftertaste. These ones taste really similar too, but I'd have to say slight advantage over Pink Panther. I don't know, let me try one more of this Setaceus because it's new to me. And they're all nice little bite-sized fruit. That's what I like about them. You could eat several and be really happy. A little mushier texture. Setaceus is a little bit mushier. I mean, all four of these in this little informal test are delicious, but I'd have to say that these two are my favorite. And if I could only take one, well, if I cared about pollen, I'd probably grow Sugar Dragon because it tends to bloom sooner. For the past 3 years I've grown it, versus Neon, which will come in a little later, and the fruit will taste a little sweeter and slightly get a little fatter. But it's a toss-up. All of these are delicious, self-fertile fruit. I think you'd be happy growing any of them, but that's how I'd rank them. Fourth place, Cetaceous. Third place, Pink Panther. First and second place, Sugar Dragon, slightly second. I mean, I'm jumping around, but I think Neon is my favorite. Or either of those. These two are great. They're all great. So there you go. Hey, this is Paul, and today I'm going to do a review on Purple Flower Oamp Ponus. The fruit is weighing in at just under a pound. And the Orange Flower Oamp Ponus, which is weighing over a half a pound. Now first, look at this stunning Purple Flower Oamp Ponus flower. It's really beautiful. And the fruit is really stunning as well. It's probably one of the prettiest dragon fruit looking wise, aesthetically. Look at that. It's like a dragon's egg. And then the Orange Flower Oamp Ponus, a little bit smaller fruit. This is first season fruit on both of them for me. So I'm interested to try them. And you can see this Orange Flower Oamp Ponus as well. It's a really pretty flower. And they both do pretty well. These come from Mexico, and they are a type of Hylocereus ocamponus. El Grullo has been my favorite one, and these tend to have a very dense flesh, red flesh, self-sterile, and sometimes they'll taste like sweet beets to me. And look at that. That's a beautiful red flesh, full of antioxidants. Look at that. So dark you can barely see the seeds. Wow. And up to the left, I have a no idea, unknown Guatemalensis, a Guatemalan type, which I really like. Probably my favorite variety. And this one has a little bit more seeds. It probably is not going to taste as good since it's the first season. It probably could have been on the plant a little bit longer. See how the thickness of the skin is a little thicker? And I can definitely smell it from here. It smells like vegetables. And the orange one smells more like vegetables. And that one on the left smells a little bit earthy, like a beet. But I've had quite a few Oamp Ponus, so I know what to expect. Let's just dive in for it. So I'm going to take this corner slice to see. It's definitely more dense, I can already tell you, but this one's juicy. And I don't like it. I had to spit it out, sorry. It tastes a bit astringent to me. Ooh, like soapy beets. Let's test the sweetness. There is some sweetness to it. But, ooh, it's an acquired taste. I'd like to say it tastes good, but I would be lying. Ooh. All right, I'm a little afraid of the next bite, I hate to say, to be honest with you. There's a little bit of water in there. Let me get it out. There we go. So 16. All right, I'm going to go for it. I mean, this is ripe. It is a pretty plant. All right, let's see if I can swallow this. It's just kind of astringent to me. It's sweet. It's more mild the second go around. But I definitely don't like it. I would not recommend it, at least this first season. It's not my cup of tea. Let's see how the orange flower tastes. Orange one's tasting more mild. Still dense. Really earthy. Okay. I had to spit that one out, I hate to say. These are not my cup of tea. Very pretty, more of an ornamental variety in my opinion. Maybe these will taste better, but I have no desire to consume those. That is not something I enjoy. So I'm going to clean my palate with something I do, which is a Guatemalan variety, this magenta fleshed. That's a good way to clean your palate. Night and day. So some people really do enjoy this variety and these different types, but this one is the most astringent tasting. It reminds me of Hylocereus broncensis, where it's just not an enjoyable thing to eat, I hate to say. Now, if I was starving, I would eat it, but I would take this one any day over that, flavor-wise today. But these ones are just much more up my alley, which I really prefer. So, Guatemalans. It's a pretty flower, pretty fruit. And I want to like it more. I really do. But just didn't do it for me. So there's my honest review off of my palate. Hey, this is Paul, and today I'm going to review Leo Manuel's Rixford crossed with Gymnitzelendata seedling B, which we named Brenda. You can see its sister seedling A here is a pink flesh fruit, but it was picked a little early. You can see by the skin, it's kind of thick, and it was brixing in the 15s. So it reminded me a lot of Maria Rosa for what it's worth. And let's go ahead and cut this beast. It's a little over a pound. And let's see how this one tastes. And that looks a lot better. It's not as seedy as seedling A. So look at that. It's a beautiful magenta flesh fruit. This is really ripe. You can see it's a much better, thinner skin, which is what you want, and less seedy. So this one, I'll do a formal review on it next year. I'll definitely compare it tonight to seedling B, but let's see how this one does. First, let's take a quick measurement, a sample of its sugar content of the sample. Okay. And I'm really excited to try this. I had several small fruit last season, but nothing over a pound off of the plant. So mid-15s, which is not bad. I tend to like a little sweeter fruit, but it still might taste really sweet. Let's go for it. Wow. It reminds me of Paul Thompson's hybrids. Probably say Dark Star? Purple Haze a little more. Definitely good. I think it'll get sweeter next year. This one's more tropical and how I would describe kind of coconutty, the way a Maria Rosa tastes to me. But Brenda's tasting a little bit better. Now let's see how it compares to a Cosmic Charlie, which is Paul Thompson's 2S. You can see that they're very similar hybrids. I mean, he did repeat the cross. Very similar to Cosmic Charlie. Flavor-wise, Cosmic Charlie's tasting a little bit sweeter. Let's check it out. And Cosmic Charlie's really tasting really good this year. And this is Spicy Exotics Cosmic Charlie. I actually have 3 sources of Cosmic Charlie. And it's a 17. They'll get even sweeter. But for some reason, Cosmic Charlie was splitting at the nose. See it? So it's a nose cone. It could have been that we've had some colder weather. And I did give them a little bit too much water recently. A heavy drip. So that could account for why that split. But either way, these are all top quality fruit. It's almost a coin toss, but I slightly prefer this one. It has a little bit more acidity after the sweetness. Very, very similar. So, there you have it. And this is Brenda, which is very similar to Paul Thompson's seedlings. Flavor-wise, very, very similar. This one was picked a little earlier, seedling A. This is Peggy. And it's a little seedy, you can see. But it's still really enjoyable, and it's a pink flesh variety. That one just tastes a lot like Maria Rosa to me. So there you have it. All of them are wonderful varieties. They're all pretty much similar in flavor and density and the flesh to seed ratio. Even the seeds are very similar size. So there you have it. Brenda, Peggy, and Cosmic Charlie. Hey, this is Paul, and today I'm going to review Yala X. Now it's weighing in at 1 15/100 of a pound. It's a really nice size. And you can see here I've actually tasted the fruit from the parent plant last year, Yala #1, which I got from Leo Manuel, and it came from Paul Thompson. And you can see the flower is really beautiful as well. So this is the Yala X flower. It's very yellow, although the fruit tastes like an Oamp Ponus. So I've never had this fruit. I'm really excited to try it, and I'm really interested to see what it looks like inside. If I had to guess, I would guess it's a Yala crossed with an Undatus, a white fleshed fruit. So let's go ahead and let's give it a cut and see what it tastes like and see what it looks like. Well, that's pretty. It's a bit more magenta than I thought. So it's like a dark magenta color, I should say. It's nice and ripe. Look at the skin is thin, but not too thin. Looks juicy. Let's just give it a shot. Let's see what it tastes like. It's a nice texture. Oh my gosh, it's really good. It's a little more dense than some of the typical fruit that I've eaten, but not in a bad way. But it's not as dense as an Oamp Ponus, and this is very much improved over the parent plant, I could tell you that. I would much rather eat this than the fruit I ate last season. Okay, let's see how sweet it is. All right. So 15 2/10, which is respectable, but nothing too sweet. Tastes sweeter than that. Let's make sure. It's really good. It's got a sweetness. It has a little bit of acidity. Yeah, it's less sweetened as we go down, but it definitely tastes like a keeper to me. It's very enjoyable. Reminds me a bit of a Guatemalan, I would have to say. Despite the parents. I really like it. Here's a Guatemalan, my favorite. Just want to compare it to that. Yeah, it's definitely got a firmer texture. It's got different flavors slightly. But definitely I do not taste much of an Oamp Ponus vibe. It's really clean. Hits you with some sweetness and then a little bit of tart. This is the first fruit off of the plant, so I expect it will be sweeter in the future. But absolutely a keeper. I'm going to eat this whole fruit. The seeds are smaller too. Compared to a Guatemalan, I prefer the texture of this one. It's got a nicer texture, but this one has a slightly better flavor, ever slightly. So wow, really delicious fruit. I'm really impressed with Leo Manuel's seedling of Yala X. It's a beautiful flower, beautiful fruit, and it tastes great too. Dark magenta. Hey, this is Paul, and today I'm going to review an Australian variety called Jade Red. It's weighing in at almost 6/10 of a pound, which is one of the larger fruits I've had the past 2 seasons. And I'd have to say this probably has one of the prettiest flowers in my opinion. It's a gorgeous flower, as you can see here. Really, really beautiful. Now, this one doesn't taste much like an Asunta, although the flower kind of looks like it could. This one actually tastes more like a Guatemalan variety. And you can see it's a little bit overripe. So see this here? That means I should have picked it a little bit sooner. I don't like that texture. It's not my favorite. It tends to be a little mushy. So let's see how it tastes. Now it's going to be a little misleading because it's going to Brix higher, because it's sweet. But in my opinion, you want to pick it right before this happens. The texture is just a little off. It's not as good as it should. And I'll compare it with like this Nicaraguan red. This should not be overripe. There you go. So I definitely wanted to see what happened if I left Jade Red until it turned really red on the skin. And you can see it's overripe. See the difference? Now this is going to be a little bit misleading because it's going to have a high Brix score, I bet. Because when you make the fruit overripe, the sugar content gets higher, but it doesn't always taste better. So a little misleading. Well, let's test out my little hypothesis. Now it does definitely taste sweet. I can say that. Get out those air bubbles. Get the most accurate reading possible. So 16, so it's respectable, 15 and 8/10. Definitely tastes sweeter than that, but I wish I picked it sooner. And it just tastes like a really delicious Guatemalan. Here's Nicaraguan red, a nice Guatemalan as well. And back to back, they do taste very similar. This is actually quite nice, although it is overripe. I'm going to pick it next time when it's a bit more green on the skin. But all in all, quite good. I prefer the texture of this one just a little bit more because it's not overripe. Really delicious. I should probably try this other Jade Red too. Yeah, it must have been bred with a Guatemalan because these taste so similar. So 18 and 5/10 on this small fruit, just to let you know when I tested it. So it can get quite sweet. So if you're looking for a purple flower, it is self-sterile, I believe, but with a beautiful magenta flesh and a fruit that tastes like a Guatemalan, you're going to definitely want Jade Red. I highly recommend it. It's a delicious fruit, very Guatemalan flavors, I should say. Beautiful flower, and it grows really vigorously. So there you go, Jade Red. I'm sure it will get a little higher, but very respectable score. These fruit are absolutely delicious tonight. Hey, this is Paul, and today I'm going to review Don Burnett's 1-10 Cotton Candy. It's weighing in at just over half a pound, and it's been on the vine for over 60 days. These ones have. This one has been a little less. I had it in the fridge, as you can see, for about a week. So we'll see how the flavors are. Now, this flower is stunning. You can see it here. It's probably one of the prettiest white flowers I have in the collection. And it's actually a sibling to Connie G, Queen Denarius, Celeste, Little Winnie, and 18 seedlings hybridized by Don Burnett. So let's get to it. This one is cotton candy, I believe, because of the color. Look at that. Now this is definitely at its peak ripeness. You can see how thin the skin is, and that's bad for commercial potential, as you could see. So this is probably more of a backyard grower's variety. So let's see how it tastes. Now this one's probably going to taste better than the ones I picked earlier, I can tell. Much improved. Very tropical. Sweetness, and then kind of mild, and then some slight earthiness in the seeds. Now this is the first season where I have some really good fruit. So hopefully next season they'll taste even better. But I've had, oops, I should zero it. I've had Connie G, and that one definitely has commercial potential, and I liked how it tasted. But for what it's worth, later in the season last year, I enjoyed a Haley's Comet, and that was hands down the best fruit of the season. And I was lucky enough to have at least over 100 varieties last season. I didn't really count. But Connie G was up there. It's definitely a good fruit. Let's see how sweet this is. So 14 and 7/10, not very sweet. Let's try another one. Let's see if it can get up there. It could just be the first season of the fruit. Could be the cold weather. Could be a lot of factors. But I knew my palate wasn't tasting something extravagant yet. Let's see how this one does. So 15. So maybe I just need to leave it on the vine even longer. But I feel like I left it on for quite a long time. So if you look at the cone, it was just about to split. All right, we'll do one more sample, and if not, it is what it is. I'm not going to worry about it. And Brix isn't everything. As long as it's above anywhere from 14, I would say, like this, it's going to be okay. All right, let's flavor. Let's taste these flavors. See what I can detect. Oh, weird. It's definitely more sweet as I get into the fruit. Wow. All right, one more. It tastes a lot sweeter than it's recording, see? Okay. So it does have potential. It must just be the first season's fruit. Color's really nice. Tastes really sweet. And then tropical. Not really coconutty though. Juicy like a Guatemalan. A lot of seeds though. So a higher ratio of seeds than flesh than some other varieties. It's definitely enjoyable. I compare it to this red here. Wow, it's actually really nice to mix them. I enjoy that very much. This one's just light, kind of like a grape melon kiwi vibe. Sort of reminiscent of Paul Thompson's hybrids in a bit. At least the flesh texture. But it just falls a little flat. Just needs a little more. And I think that has to do with just the age of the plant. So I hope next year will be even better. But I definitely am enjoying this variety more and more as I eat it. I think it's key to leave it on longer. But as you can see, look at how thin that skin is. Really pretty flesh though. I can see why Donovan Vasta named it cotton candy. It's a stunning looking fruit. Really pretty on the outside too. So there you go. That is the second season of cotton candy fruit. We had a nice flush of over 10 or 12 fruit this season, and they taste pretty good. I expect that this would probably go up to maybe 19 or 20, as many of the sisters have already. So there you go. Hey, this is Paul, and today I'm going to review these 3 sister seedlings created by German hybridizer Eckhard Meyer, as you can see here. He created these about 2.5 decades ago. Now what he did is he crossed Hyloceras stenopterus with Hyloceras undatus, and look at the beautiful flowers that resulted in this cross. And the fruit are a little bit smaller. You can see Bruni weighs in at over 1/3 of a pound, but most of them weigh in at around 1/4 of a pound. So they're a smaller sized fruit, and there are subtle differences between them. The flowers are slightly different, but let's go straight for Bruni today. Some people say Bruni. And Bruni is going to be a white-skinned, green-skinned, it will turn this color here when it's ripe, and then it's a white flesh. And I can already smell the tropical flavors. It kind of tastes like a coconut, in my humble opinion, or maybe a synthetic coconut. Really pretty fruit, really delicious flesh. Really, really sweet. Bruni tends to bloom the first out of the 3 sisters. And personally, it's my favorite one, and it grows the hardiest. Now, what's interesting about Kathy von Arum is that it's a pink flesh, you can see. So this one got its pink flesh even. Here's one that was picked a little bit sooner. And you can see it's still a beautiful pink flesh. A little less of that coconut flavor, but really, really sweet from that little fruit. Let's see how the pink fleshed one is. Very, very similar. If I had to eat one of them, I would say Kathy von Arum tastes a little better, ever so slightly. They're both high quality, delicious fruit, but this one doesn't do so well in the cold weather. All right, let's try the 3rd sister, Connie Meyer. You can see Connie is more like Bruni. So beautiful white flesh. These are really ripe, really sweet, really delicious. A little bit more mild, Connie. Let's try this one. Sweet, but not as intense. It's the least dynamic. Overall, I'd say this is my favorite, Kathy von Arum. But again, it doesn't grow quite as well, and it blooms a little later. Bruni is going to be a really good tropical flavor. Really sweet white flesh, and it does tend to bloom first of the 3 sisters. Well, I'm curious now. Let's see the sweetness. Let's measure it with this Brix refractometer and take a sample and get a better idea of what's going on here. So I think I'll go first with this Kathy von Arum. Really tasted really delicious and sweet. Now these varieties will Brix into the 20s quite easily, and you definitely want to keep them on until the skin gets a little, 22, look at that. The skin will get a little colored, and that's when you know it's just ripe. So 22 on the Brix, really sweet. I'd give this a 9 or a 10 out of 10. It's absolutely phenomenal. I can't think of anything negative, flavor-wise. Just knocks it out of the park. Now let's see how this Bruni is. Tastes really sweet as well, but not quite as sweet as KVA. .21/10, still very, very respectable. Now, I'm not going to worry about this one. It will do about the same. It's going to be very comparable, Connie Meyer. But this one just didn't taste as sweet today, so I think it's not going to be as high. But there you have it. You can see just how delicious these sister seedlings are. I think they're phenomenal. I grow all 3. And actually, one is from Leo Manuel, so it's been around quite a while. Actually, all 3 I have from Leo Manuel, so he had collected all 3. He misspelled Bruni. It was Bruni. but as you can see, it's the same fruit. So all in all, just delicious fruit. This Kathy Von Arum is phenomenal. Let me try this one more, because I can't get enough. I just want another bite. I guess the only drawback I could think of is that they're a little small. Such a lovely fruit. You'd be happy growing any of these three. Now they are self-sterile and they are a poor pollen source, just to let you know. So give us a like and a subscribe. Thanks for your time. Have yourself a wonderful day. Take care.